tomorrow?
I don't know, it says 6:29. Mallory, just give a thumbs up when it hits.
Just gotta go in. Yeah. All right, clock says 6:30. Let's get the meeting called to order.
I'll take roll. Klein.
Here.
Koenig.
Here.
Puchel.
Here.
Roder.
Here.
Stagg.
Here. All right. Approval for the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All for? Against? Okay. Okay, move on to public comment.
So, we're with Smith Sanitation. I'm Wes, this is my brother Josh. And we've seen that there's a bid opening coming up. We weren't sure what the information was on that.
Yeah, I was, as you heard, maybe I was on vacation last week, so I will have it out sometime this week.
Oh, okay, so
And I think, and we have you on the list.
Yep, okay, no, we weren't sure what the,
Yep.
when I know it's like there's a 60 days notice and
Yep.
stuff.
Mhm.
So is that already sent out?
Nope.
It hasn't been? Okay. Alrighty, we just wanted to check in and introduce ourselves.
Appreciate that, yeah.
Yep.
Did we talk on the phone?
Yep, yeah, I talked with you.
I thought
You guys do garbage and recycling?
Yeah, we got 65 gallon like you guys got in town and stuff, and we have the equipment. And I got a supplier for carts waiting in line, so we've just been waiting, and they've been contacting us. I'm trying to hold them, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you guys got different gallon containers? Like right now, I think we can get a smaller, can't we get like a smaller garbage can and a bigger garbage can and a smaller recycle? You guys got different size gallon capacity?
So 35 gallon, 65 gallon, 95 gallon, whatever you guys put out for specs, we'll pretty much follow that.
Okay, I figured they all probably have the same, but I just wanted to make sure.
We're flexible. We like having it the same size across, that way we just don't have to hold all the different stocks and cart sizes.
You won't get that here.
Yeah.
Because everybody, I mean, like a small family might only need a small, or whatever. Yeah, so.
Cool. Alrighty.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay. Approve.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. All for?
Aye.
Against? All right. Oops. All right. Reports.
So the sheriff, you see that now, did send a report today. Chad sent a report. Oh, and the engineer, I'm sorry, I don't mean to skip over anybody. The engineer did submit a written report as well. That was in the update. I just got that today too.
Okay.
This is pertaining to what you had spoke to earlier. 2 meetings ago, we had citizens, we had an issue with the sign he was putting up that was in our right of way. And the dialogue at the meeting kind of got out of hand, which you'd spoken to, which is, because what it amounted to was just a he said, she said, and got out of hand. And, realized it should have been stopped that time, but, we'll correct that. But at the next meeting, what I'd like to do is have this issue discussed again so not to cause a problem in the future. And I guess my feeling is if we can determine that a sign is in our right of way, we should be able to determine where they can put it so it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when they get a permit is what I want to discuss, and we can't do anything in this meeting, but so you can think about it. What I'd like to.
It's on the agenda, Darryl.
It's number 14.
Yeah, the sign regulations is on the agenda.
Okay, can I talk about it now? Okay,
We'll just wait and talk about it when we get down to
why don't we
14.
talk about it when it's on the agenda?
okay.
Yeah, it's down there on the bottom. I
Well,
just noticed it too.
Okay. This is for regulations, this isn't really a regulation, it's a procedure more than anything, so.
Well, you can bring it up then,
All right, well,
or when we talk about it.
Yeah, we can bring it up.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Okay.
Unless there's someone else from the council. I did get an email, well, it came in last week, but I wanted to bring it to the attention, cause Cody, I know you mentioned about, trying to get the cleanup day scheduled.
Yeah.
So I had gotten some, options for that day, and they're running, apparently they're getting filled up quickly, of course. And what I got was April 19th, that's a Saturday, that's Easter weekend. May 24th, that's Memorial Day weekend. May 31st, June 14th, or June 21st,
So
so.
when is our garage sales?
It's the first Saturday
Yeah,
of May.
The third or the fifth?
Third or
I
something.
Okay,
literally just.
Third,
saw it.
okay, so,
what's that was the 10th, that's,
what?
is the 10th open for the?
No,
No, just
she
the
didn't
dates I just
mention
gave.
the
What would be the closest one after May 3rd?
31st.
31st.
The
Well,
24th.
would be, but that's Labor Day weekend.
Memorial Day,
Or Memorial,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
that's
sorry.
all right.
Cause that's tradition, it's always been the following Saturday.
Yes,
Right.
As long as it's ever had.
until last year,
Well, it would have been
when they
last year,
didn't
they showed up.
show up.
I'm sure a company probably isn't gonna be as flexible with us as years past. So what's the weekend before? April?
Uh,
14th.
I don't know, that wasn't an option. The 19th was, but, so
That's
then
two
what, the
weekends.
7 would be the 26th. And
What's
that
really
wasn't an
nice is
option.
having it after garage sale days, because then like the people that don't sell some of their stuff
Yeah.
can just pitch it.
So, I'm speaking in total hypotheticals here. If bids for sanitation gets put out this week, it's 30 days, correct? Is that what,
I think it was April, you'll have them to review the first meeting in April?
first meeting in April?
That's what you wanted, right?
Yeah, so we'd send out a 60-day letter potentially at that time. So that's it. Man.
It's kind of a tight window. Trying
So
to hit
we're all the
the
way into
10th.
June with a new company potentially.
Yeah, unless you push back
Well, I
the
think
opening,
we hit the first date we can after garage sales then.
so May 24th.
I know it's Labor Day weekend or
Memorial
Memorial Day
Day
weekend, but I don't know any other better option.
I don't
And
either.
if we get a new service, we could always look
Yeah,
at,
usually we're not given dates by
no,
the garbage people, it's usually we tell them.
yeah.
Well, and that was my, I had it first written, I knew the dates that we had
Yeah.
for last year that they missed, and then I was gonna recommend the 10th, obviously,
Yeah.
but, that wasn't given as an option.
Well, I think as we review services, we can like, when we decide on it, just tell the company we want the second Saturday in May. Always,
Yeah.
Pencil it in for your whole contract.
Just make it
just
Make it part of your
standard.
contract.
Part of the contract.
Okay.
right.
But, yeah, I don't know, the 24th, it isn't great, but
I agree with Cody.
Okay.
we might as well have them do one service for us before the contract's voided.
Yeah, all right, I will just let them know May 24th then.
Okay. Next up is Eagle Point Solar.
I don't have anything.
Oh, yeah, did,
So, nothing.
Do you need,
You have
Yeah, my
your
written report is
report.
ready.
we're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You wanna listen to what we're gonna
Sure.
get here?
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, council, for the opportunity to address you tonight. I had stopped by a couple of weeks ago to drop off some information on solar for municipalities. And that's what I've just passed out to you tonight. I had the pleasure of working with Shelley at Central City on a project like this, so she very graciously passed that along to all of you, so that's why I'm here tonight. I just want to give you a real quick overview of who Eagle Point Solar is. So we are based out of Dubuque, Iowa. That's where our headquarters is. We have offices in Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Baraboo, Wisconsin, and Peoria, Illinois. We're the largest installer of solar in the state of Iowa. We have about 4,000 arrays installed, about 72 megawatt of solar in the field. We do things a little bit differently than some solar companies out there in that solar is all we do. We're essentially a construction company that builds solar 12 months out of the year. We don't subcontract our projects out. We have multiple crews from all of our offices. We might subcontract parts and pieces of a project out if it's something that we don't do. For example, you have to do a horizontal bore under a parking lot or something like that. That's not our expertise. We'd hire a local contractor for that. But the customer never deals with anybody other than us. We realize that, especially if you've done projects with multiple subcontractors before, if a problem arises, the first thing that everybody does is kind of take a step back and say, well, that wasn't my part of the project. And as a customer, you don't really care who caused the problem, you just want the problem solved. So we deal with any of that. The customer never deals with a subcontractor if we have to have a subcontractor. We also don't subcontract just because we do about 500 projects a year, and if we subcontract out our projects, we start losing control of the construction calendar pretty quickly, and it becomes kind of a mess. So that's just kind of a real quick 60,000 foot view of who we are. So I did want to talk a little bit about solar in general. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of confusion out there with things. So I'll just kind of go through the sheets in there. The first sheet here talks about incentives. If you're a private business, if you're a homeowner, you qualify for a 30% federal tax credit. If you're a business, you qualify for depreciation. There currently is a provision in the Inflation Reduction Act that allows non-taxable entities to get a direct payment for the equivalent of the tax credit that goes to private businesses and individuals. With funds being frozen and things like that, I'm not sure if that federal direct pay will be available. That's kind of a wait and see type of thing. But that's just a sheet that talks about kind of the incentives that are available. The next sheet in here starts talking about equipment. So it all starts with the solar panels, the solar modules, that's what everybody sees. That sits on a rooftop or on the ground that collects DC current. We use a number of different manufacturers. We don't tie ourselves to any one manufacturer. We will only install tier 1 equipment. So there's 3 different types, 3 different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is the top tier. Those come with a minimum of a 25-year production warranty, 40+ year life expectancy. They're hail resistant, ammonia resistant. The sheet that's in there is one that we're using a lot now. It's a company called vSun. These come with actually a 30-year production warranty, and our supplier has backed that with an insurance policy through RE Munich, which is the largest insurer in the world. So when you're talking about warranties that go 30 years, that just gives you an extra layer of protection if the company does go out of business. That warranty is covered by that insurance policy then. So those panels, they collect the sunlight, they produce DC current. That DC current doesn't do you a whole lot of good, so we introduce an inverter. That inverter, there's different types of inverters for different installations. We'll choose the right one for the job. That inverts that DC current into AC electricity, becomes usable energy from whatever meter that's connected to, whether it's a building or a lift station, wastewater plant, whatever it is, that becomes usable energy to that. So the way that it works is solar array wakes up in the morning, it starts producing energy. If it's not producing enough to cover the load of the meter that it's connected to, you'll just pull whatever you need from the utility. When the sun gets higher in the sky, it starts producing more. If it starts producing more than you need at any given time, that overproduction goes back then to the utility, and they hold that as a credit on your account. So then when the sun goes down at night, you start buying your electricity from the utility again, but you start building up these credits. And the way that we typically will do this is we'll design it to offset, if possible, 100% of your consumption for a year. So solar produces in kind of a bell-shaped curve. In the winter months, it's lower. we have shorter daylight hours, the sun's lower in the sky. In the summer, we have nice long daylight hours, sun's higher in the sky, produces more. So we build it in such a way that we overproduce in those summer months, that carries forward month to month to month around through the winter months, and then in April, they do what's called a true up, which means they wipe the slate clean, they start that process all over again. So you go April to March 31st, and then back over and over again, so that gives you all the spring and summer overproduction to cover those winter months. You guys are on Alliant Energy, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so Alliant Energy, they do what's called net metering, and that is where they do credit you that full kilowatt hour credit. So whatever you pay for that credit at any given time, that's the value of the credit on the account, and that carries forward month to month to month. And then again, they wipe the slate clean, so we don't want to build these things too big, because if you end up with credits at the end of the year, Alliant just takes those and you start the process over again. So we want to make sure we right size these things. So that's just real quick in general, kind of how solar works. I know we kind of set the meeting up to talk about a funding mechanism called the power purchase agreement, but before I jump into that, are there any questions on utility policies, on how solar works, or anything like that? Okay. So one of the things that we offer is a funding mechanism called a power purchase agreement. And the way that a power purchase agreement works is, if you are a non-taxable entity, if you're a school or a municipality, you don't have the money to install solar, a power purchase agreement allows a third-party investor to pay for the construction of the solar. They own the solar arrays, they maintain the solar arrays, they insure the solar arrays, and then the municipality simply enters into a contract to buy the energy produced from those solar arrays at a rate lower than what you're paying the utility. So it's a way for municipalities and schools to get into solar without spending any money up front, and they start taking a discount on their solar, or excuse me, on their energy in year one. And that is a 25-year contract that can be bought out anytime after year 7. So the investor has to hold on to the asset for 7 years to take full advantage of the tax credits that are available to them and depreciation. But after that, if the city wanted to, they could purchase the arrays outright and take a full savings on those. If they didn't want to, they can run it the whole 25 years. After 25 years, there's 3 options. They can either extend the contract another 5 years under the same terms. They can buy the arrays outright at fair market value, which is 5% of the original contract price. Or they can tell the investor, hey, thank you very much. We appreciated the savings for the last 25 years. Come get your stuff and take it away. And there's no cost to the city for that. So that's in general how this works. We have done more power purchase agreements than anyone in the state of Iowa. Back in 2012, we tried to do our first power purchase agreement, and Alliant Energy at that time said, you can't do that. You're selling electricity, and we have territories, and we're the only ones who can do that. So we went to the Iowa Utility Board, they sided with Alliant Energy, we filed a lawsuit, went all the way up to the Iowa Supreme Court. Iowa Supreme Court sided on our side, saying that a power purchase agreement is 1-to-1 versus a utility is 1-to-many. So in 2014, when all of this was done, that was the first power purchase agreement in the state of Iowa. We've done probably about 150, 175 arrays under a power purchase agreement. We've done one for Cedar Rapids, for Johnson County, City of Oelwein, City of Central City, Piasta, Dubuque, Dyersville, Worthington, out in Dow's, Springville, we're just finishing up some there as well. So we've done a number of these things, and it's just the way my job for our company is I deal with non-taxable entities, and I don't generally run into municipalities or schools that have a ton of money laying around that they can just throw at projects like this. So this is a way to get into solar, to start saving money immediately, to start showing some progressiveness and start, like I said, saving money that first year. And then what some communities do is they put in the budget to buy these out in some time in the future, say year 10. So they budget those dollars in year 10. They're not digging into coffers. They have the dollars. They purchase the arrays outright at that point. They don't have to. So if you said, hey, yeah, we want to buy these out in year 10, and you start saving money, and all of a sudden you've got an unexpected expense. And you say, well, we've got these dollars set aside to buy the arrays. We're going to dip into that. We're going to pay off this expense, and we're going to buy the arrays in year 12 or 15, or we're never going to buy it. It's completely up to you. There's no commitment on the front end to say, yes, we're going to buy these out at some given point. So real high level, that's how the process works. And the way that we work with the city is we would get your bills from Alliant Energy. We would run an analysis on those to determine what meters, if any, are viable meters for solar and viable meters for a power purchase agreement. There are certain rate codes that it doesn't really work well for. So we would evaluate that. We would run reports on that. We would put together PPA calculations. We would meet with the council and say, here's what this looks like. Here's what your rate would be, for your energy versus the utility rate. Here's what your buyout cost would be in year 10. Here's what your long-term net cash gain looks like, and see if that makes sense. If it does, we would come back. We would do a site assessment on all of the locations. What that entails is if it's a building, we'll typically do an aerial assessment with a drone. It takes hundreds of pictures and creates a three-dimensional model, allows us to very accurately design these things. And then we do the same type of thing. We build the reports, we put together PPA numbers, we come back with final numbers and determine whether or not, the city wants to move forward. So there's no commitment to the city at any point in time along this process until the point in time that you decide to move forward with the project. And then we'll have contracts signed at that point. So again, I threw a lot at you. I want to be respectful of your time. Any questions at all for me?
So what is the, have you been in the business long enough, what is the lifespan of this equipment normally? I know you haven't had enough time, I don't imagine yet, but what is the projected lifetime of this equipment?
Yeah, so the solar modules themselves, the life expectancy is 40 plus years. The inverters, most of the inverters come with a 20 to 25 year warranty, probably a 30-year life expectancy. And again, it really depends on the equipment, but under a PPA contract, the city has no responsibility to maintain or upkeep the equipment at all. The investor owns the equipment, they maintain it, they insure it. If there's an issue with a piece of equipment, the investor, we monitor these things, so we would say, hey, we've got a module out, or we got an inverter that needs to be replaced or whatever. The investor then has a maintenance contract with us, so we swap everything out, and that goes for the entire time that the city is on that PPA contract. If at some point in time the PPA contract gets bought by the city, or the arrays get bought by the city, then it would be their responsibility to take over any maintenance, any warranty issues, anything like that.
So now, if this is all mounted on the roof, is that correct? Are they mounted on the roof?
They can be on the roof or on the ground.
Okay, say on the roof, okay, so you mount on the roof. 10 years from now, they need a new roof. Do they come and remove this equipment so we can put a roof on then you will reinstall it again, is that right?
Exactly, so you call us, we would come, depending on the type of roof, sometimes if it's you're just sitting on a gable roof, we will pull off the array, set it on the other side, that side gets roofed, we pull things back onto and reinstall it. Otherwise, the equipment comes down and it just goes back up. So that's on a time and materials basis. That would be a scenario, even under a PPA, that would be an expense to the city. So if the city said, hey, we've got to re-roof this building, there would be a cost to the city to have it removed and replaced.
Okay.
I assume our biggest expense is wastewater plant,
Yeah,
so, yeah, right, of course, so.
Do you know the scope of our project that we're thinking about?
No, I have
Okay,
not
okay,
seen
I
any
didn't know
bills
that.
or anything yet.
Right,
So we're
okay.
just kind of talking conceptually here.
Right,
So a wastewater treatment plant, one of the challenges that we run up against is Alliant Energy has different rate codes. So if you have a water treatment plant that is a really big user of energy, they will put you into what's called a large demand rate code. And the way that that works is they lower your cost per kilowatt hour. So if you're on a demand rate code, you're probably paying about 4 cents or so for a kilowatt hour versus we all pay probably 17, 18 cents for a kilowatt hour. So they drop the cost of the kilowatt hours down really low, but then they put in a demand charge, and that demand charge looks at every 15 minutes, and it looks at spikes in usage, kilowatt spikes in usage, and they'll look at every 15 minutes, whatever the highest point is in a billing period, they're gonna bill 75% of that, even if you don't use the energy. So I'll give you an example where this works against the customer. I was working with a very large manufacturing company. Their bills were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. When COVID hit, they were open for a week during a billing period. They shut completely down for 3 weeks. When they got their bills, they saved $1,000 because in that first week they had their normal spikes and they got billed for 30 days, even though they were completely shut down for 3 weeks. So the challenge with solar isn't going to get rid of that demand charge. So when you look at the cost of energy, you have to look at just the cost of the kilowatt hours, and if you're paying 3 or 4 cents for that, you're not gonna get a PPA rate below that.
So the main cost of the wastewater plant for us anyway would be the fact that we have 3-phase 480 volt plumbers. So would solar be able to provide
Oh, absolutely.
that level of energy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And again, what we would do is we'd look at the bills will tell us right away whether or not, if you're in that demand rate code, a PPA might not work, solar might work, but, we would look at that at that point in time. But any other rate code, I shouldn't say any other rate code, all the other meters would be on rate code 600 likely, which are, very offsettable by solar. But again, we would run an analysis on all of the meters to determine which, if any, would make sense. And we don't charge to run the analysis or do the site assessment. That's all kind of the upfront stuff to say, here's what this looks like, and does it make sense in your eyes?
In some of these other municipalities around that you're already in, have you run across this issue?
The large
As far
demand,
as- Yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah.
kilowatt hours and how
yeah.
Alliant's charging.
Yeah, so typically with municipalities, and it's usually bigger municipalities, their wastewater treatment plants usually are on a demand rate code, which kind of knocks them out of a PPA. We do have multiple communities, so I'll give you an example. I live in Piasta.
Okay.
We had 7 different city meters and the wastewater treatment plant. Well, the wastewater treatment plant was a demand, didn't work, but we had 7 other meters that added up to enough that made it worthwhile to do a PPA. City of Oldwine, same type of thing. They had, I think, 3 meters and the wastewater treatment plant. Wastewater treatment plant was on a demand rate code, wouldn't work under a PPA, but the other 3 made sense for the city, and they moved forward with it at that point. So that's why we run that analysis first, just to determine whether or not there's something that makes sense. So, I don't know how many meters the city has here, but let's say you've got 8 meters, and we look at them and maybe some of them aren't big enough to matter or anything like that. We come down and maybe we've got 3 or 4 meters, and we'll just look at that and we'll run the numbers based on that and say, does this make sense to you? And the first pass really is, does this thing make sense on paper? We hadn't designed anything at that point, but we'll run the numbers out. If it looks like it might make sense on paper, then we would keep going through the process and we would do the detailed site assessment on the viable meters and then run those numbers out.
That makes sense.
Other questions at all? So the first step in the process, I could send Shelley a release form for Alliant. She would just fill that out, we'd send it to them, they would send us the bills for every meter that you have, and we would just start that process, and then I would connect with Shelley once we have reports done, and see if we can line up a meeting to just kind of go through it.
Motion to move ahead with Eagle Point Solar.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Right? I'll get you that release form tomorrow, Shelley. Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take a moment to bounce back to Debbie that walked in. Anything for you?
I'm good to get anything from us.
No.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is number 8, Transit parking lot lease.
I don't have it, I'm just waiting to see what you guys heard back from the attorney.
Yeah, and the attorney is on.
Anything?
Can you hear us,
Mark, is he
Valerie?
good?
Mark, can you hear them?
I can. Can you everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So Shelley, did everybody get a copy of my red line to the land lease?
Yeah, yes, it was in,
Okay.
it was in the.
So what I thought I'd do, council and mayor, if it's okay with you, I could just kind of go through this lease and address the revisions and any concerns that I have. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, so the first paragraph, that's just basic information to make it clearer. And that from there on out, I would have capitalized the word parties, P-A-R-T-I-E-S. But the substantive changes, if you go to term, which is paragraph 2. So one of the concerns that I had, and Shelley and I talked about this, is the way the lease was drafted. It was like you enter into a 5-year lease, and then the landlord with 30 days notice could terminate the lease. And my concern is if the city invested money, whether it be in a gravel parking lot, pavement, asphalt, what have you, they're going to have to spend a fair sum of money. You're going to want to be able to control that land for a much longer period of time, in my opinion, than just maybe 6 months or 8 months, assuming that the Cranic would decide, hey, we've decided we're going to terminate the lease, and then you spend all that money for the improvements. And then not only do you not get to use them anymore under this agreement, you have to go in and remove them. So the initial, and I don't know what the city's proposing or planning to do with the parking lot. I don't know how much it's planning on spending, but the original lease was for 5 years. And I think it's been changed or proposed to be changed for 10 years.
Yes.
And then if you go down further, I think it's the third line from the bottom about the middle. It says during the term, this lease may be terminated by either party for cause. I changed it to cause, not for any reason. Upon 30 days written notice, cause is defined as either party in breach of this lease agreement. Like I said, otherwise you could spend $40,000 or whatever it's going to cost to asphalt the parking lot. And 2 years from now, the way it was drafted, the Cranic could give you 30 days written notice, and you're out and you spent all the money. So that's my concern. I think you want to term this long enough so if you invest money to do a parking lot, you're going to feel like the money that you spent was worth it. If you move to rent on page 2, paragraph 4, obviously the rent is $200 a month. Let's see, the third line down, lesser may on the anniversary date of this lease. I changed it at the end of the term. So if that's 5 years, 10 years, that's when they can change the rate of the rent. It doesn't really define what anniversary date is. I suppose one interpretation is anniversary could be 1 year. So every year they could change the amount of the rent. So my proposal was at the end of the term. So it's 5 year. If it's a 5-year term or 10-year term, it depends on what all you want to do. And then I changed the second to last sentence. I guess it's the third to last sentence where it says lessee will be advised of any such increase in writing not less than, originally it was 30, I changed it to 90 days, so that you could budget for it and be ready to have an increase. And I don't, and as we all know, everything is going up in price. So I don't think it's unreasonable for the landlord to request additional money for the rent going forward at the end of the term. Let's see here. Improvements, we've sort of talked about. If you go to removal of improvements and termination, I just defined it out a little bit further what our improvements are. My understanding, the only improvements we would make would be something for a parking lot. We're not planning on building a structure, remodeling any structures that happen to be on the property, which is another question I have for in just a second. Let's see here. I changed, should lessee within 10 days after date of termination fail to make removal of restoration, I changed that to 30. I mean, if the lease gets terminated, I don't think you can hire a contractor within 10 days to come out and get the work done if you're removing a parking lot. So I would have at least 30 days for that. Finally, we're now on page 4, miscellaneous charges. According to Josh Blake with the Krandic, they're going to require that be kept in there. I'm fine with that. My understanding is we're not going to have any lighting, heating, or telephone services to the parking area. But we also agree to remove all snow and ice, other obstructions from the sidewalk or abutting the, so on and so, including lawn care. So that's an additional expense to the city that the maintenance folks would need to know about. Liability, that's pretty straightforward. If folks have any questions, we can talk about that too. I'm now on page 5, which is insurance requirements. It looks like Josh agreed with our proposed changes to be 3 million, 2 million. So we're fine there. And then under E, which now is marked as 17E, railroad protective liability insurance in the amount of $2 million. I have no idea what that is. He says that while any construction or building the parking lot, once it's completed, will no longer require. I don't know who's paying that and how we acquire it. Is this something that's acquired by the railroad company and we have to pay for the premium? Or is this something a separate policy that we have to acquire through our insurance provider? So Shelley, that might be they're going to require it be in there. So I have no idea what the premiums are. I suppose if I'm sorry?
Usually they're put on the contractor that's doing any work on it. Because
the railroad protective liability insurance?
Yep, it usually goes on the contractor doing any work.
Okay, well, and we would want any contractor that we hire to do any work, we would also want them to name the city as an additional insured and make sure they have the appropriate policy limits before we let them start constructing work. So in addition, I guess we'd require them to have railroad protective liability insurance as well in the amount of $2 million. Let's see. I'm at the bottom of page 6, which talks about lessors, lien, and security interest. This is a uniform commercial code requirement. So, for example, if we were utilizing the buildings, which I think are on the property, and storing our city equipment there, that they would have a lien on that property that's stored there if we breach the contract and fail to make our monthly payments. I'm not really worried about that for 2 reasons. One, I'm not worried about the city making its monthly rental payments. I should say, not one. And B, it's my understanding the city would not be locating any city property on this property other than when we go there to push the snow or maybe mow the grass. So it's not located there. It's simply being utilized and it's taken away from the property. By the way, I'm sure that the Krandic has used this lease agreement 100 times or more with other people. So you see a lot of boilerplate provisions in here. It looks like they agreed to strike paragraph, which was then 26, joint and several liability. At least they didn't comment on it and say no. And then the rest is just, stating that they're a corporation and that the city of Swisher is an Iowa municipal corporation. I have a question on Exhibit A. Exhibit A appears to show the property in question is outlined in, it looks like blue on my copy. And it looks to me like there's at least 4, if not 5 or 6 or 5 buildings there. Are we going to be utilizing those buildings for any reason at all?
There's no structures on the site now.
They've already cleared.
Oh, okay, so it's bare ground, and I'm sure Shelley told me that, and I just simply forgot. And then can anyone kind of tell me, obviously this is the main drag in downtown Swisher, can anyone tell me approximately based on Exhibit A, how much you think you would want for the parking lot? In other words, how much would be paved or graveled or asphalted, if you know?
I think at this time, we haven't discussed the entirety of.
And I didn't know how many parking spots you were thinking about. So, of course, when you look at these exhibits and you see these, locations of property, that parcel looks huge from this, and maybe in person, it's not that big. So
It definitely looks bigger on the map, Mark, than what it actually.
Yeah, and they typically do. So anyway, folks, those are my proposed revisions to go back to the Krandic for approval. I can certainly answer any questions that anybody has. I guess my biggest takeaway from this, or my biggest concern was the term, and basically what initially stated that either party could terminate it for any reason, and I worry that we go out and spend 40 or 50 grand to pave it, put in a parking lot or whatever we're going to do, and then 6 months later they decide they've got a buyer or someone wants to buy the land or they want to use it for something else, and we're out our 40 or 50 grand.
I think, Mark, I agree with that. What I was really concerned with was number 4, where they talked about the anniversary date and that kind of stuff. When you made the change to say at the end of the term, that to me makes more sense, at the end of 10 years possibly. I still kind of wonder too, is as far as the being able to give a 30-day notice, or 30 days? If they want to take the lease out.
That's at the end of the term, right?
Well, but
If they change it.
if for any reason.
Well, they approved it.
Yeah, that's it.
They're saying now it's at the end of the term.
Yeah.
Which
No, the way it says now is for cause, and cause is defined as either party in breach of this lease agreement. But legally, what that means is if they agree to a 10-year term and you do nothing to improve the land, you're still paying $200 a month for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to decide where you're going to really go with this. If you're in fact going to install a parking lot, and I'm going to make up a time frame within the next 6 months, and you're going to spend the money, then I think you want a longer term. If you're undecided about what you're going to do with this, then maybe you don't want as long a term. We could certainly put a provision in there that the city could terminate this lease at any time with 30, 60, 90, 120, 180 day notice, whatever you think is reasonable and fair. But they may push back and say, well, if you're going to do that, we get the same reciprocal right. I mean, let's face it, this is a sweetheart deal. $200 a month.
Yeah.
That's really cheap. Has council decided one way or the other what it wants to do to improve that property if in fact we enter the lease?
No.
I don't believe we've come to a consensus on
Okay.
what type of parking lot we put on there.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about, whether it's gravel,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yep.
asphalt, whether it's cement or wood.
We haven't voted on anything yet, Mike.
Mark?
Is there a consensus on, if you can come to a consensus on the surface, is there a consensus as to when you will move forward with doing it?
Next
Or
year
is
at
that-
the earliest.
I'm sorry?
Next fiscal year at the
Okay.
earliest.
So
Mark?
fiscal year starting July 1 of this year.
No.
No, 26.
Okay.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark? Back in November, we got a estimate from an engineering firm, as you were referring to cost and stuff. And this is based on completing the whole area there. And this was based on 5 years, but you were talking about 10 years and adding in the rent and the maintenance. The total project, and this is just estimate, would be around $180,000 you're talking.
Right, Daryl, and that's sort of my point. I think if you're actually gonna invest $180,000, I think you want a longer term.
That's based on 10 years. And that's
Okay.
that's just a guesstimate from the engineer.
Okay. Well, I guess my recommendation is maybe you need to have another meeting to sort of funnel this down on what you decide you want to do with the land, when you're going to do it, what your approximate budget's going to be. Now, if you wait a year and a half, it's going to be more than it is today, before you sign the lease, because I'm sure you want to sign a 5-year or 10-year lease, pay $200 a month, and then not have the funds in a year and a half or 2 years or 4 years to do the work.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're kind of at the early part of it, Mark, as far as deciding whether we're gonna do anything yet, so.
Yep.
It's good that you, checked all the contract and everything though, for like, if we do need to go back to them and everything.
Yeah, I like the report you're giving us back here, because it's addressed some of my concerns with it. But again, I agree too, we got some more discussions and stuff to figure out exactly what we'd wanna do with it if we do enter into this, so.
On their contract, agreement, was there a date that this had to be, back to them by, or is this?
Well, it doesn't say specifically, it just says the lease commences on March 1 of 2025. Obviously, that day has gone by.
Right.
And so let me make up an example. Let's say you guys have this on a meeting in April or even May, and then it comes back in June for final approval for whatever, then you'd want the contract to start July 1, not March 1. And now the risk you take between now and then, of course, is the Crandit could lease this agreement to somebody else, because we don't have a written agreement with them.
That's not a risk.
And it may not be. I'm just maybe stating the obvious.
Yeah.
Well,
Or they could sell a property to somebody else. Now, maybe they want to contain long-term control of it for other reasons, but if they enter into a purchase agreement, right now it would not be subject to our lease because we don't have a signed lease. If we enter into a lease, then any sale of that property would be subject to the lease agreement.
okay.
Well, appreciate your input, Mark.
Yeah,
No
thanks,
worries. Happy to help. Now, Shelley, do you want me to stick around for 9 and 14?
Yes, please.
9 for sure.
Yes, for sure on
I
9.
guess I should ask the mayor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
You're fine. Yeah, 9 and 14 we need to talk about.
Okay,
Get your input, maybe.
all right.
Pop open another beer, Mark.
I'll have to step out for that, but thank you.
Sonia presented the
Where are you
lease.
guys sitting on it?
Looks
What's the
like we
next
have
steps?
one more meeting to try to figure out what we need to do. I mean, $18,000 a year right now. Will we get that money returned to us in sales and benefits to the city? I don't know.
It's not even 18,000 a year. That's if we did the full lot.
Right, well, that's what number I had in my head.
We're not at.
We're real early in the process right now of figuring out anything. I mean, because we haven't, basically the last time we talked about it was there was no way we were gonna do the full parking lot. Yeah.
So I just want to be clear on fiscal year. You talked about next fiscal year, so
So we did not budget for the parking lot.
in next fiscal year, which begins July 1st of 2025.
Yeah,
Right.
to 26.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
why I'm saying, the soonest we'd be able to do it would be July 1st, 26.
Okay,
Yes.
Correct.
well, you don't have anything
And-
budgeted
And
without
we
a
would,
budget amendment.
and we would have to in the next budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Figure
do
that
have
out.
budgets.
So just one more comment from me, Mayor and Council, and this really isn't a legal issue. And I'm sure you're already thinking of this, but I suppose you could do it in 2 separate projects. You could do part of it initially, the parking lot, whatever you decide to do, and see how well it's utilized.
That's
If it's full all the time and people are still saying we don't have enough parking downtown, then you could do the next step and expand the parking lot. I mean, that's just something to think about.
That's what the engineer actually proposed to us.
Okay,
Is a
very good.
2-step phase.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it also possible for us to enter into this lease agreement and simply grass the area and use it for overflow parking for the next year in that sense?
Well, it probably violates our own code because you probably have to have some form of surface for a parking lot, I'm guessing.
I just know other small towns will park,
Yeah.
like you go to car shows and stuff, they're parking on grass, for those events.
In Chostek Park.
Yeah,
Well, and I'm guessing those are permitted for, a weekend or something. I think that's different than what you're proposing. I think you're talking about just allowing people to park on grass
okay.
at any time. And
But
that,
what we're actually looking at here is an actual parking lot for the downtown businesses.
right,
And, well, for the city, for other things too, as far as events and
Right.
that kind of stuff, so.
and obviously gravel's cheaper than asphalt or concrete, but gravel's hard to line for parking places too, so, or next to impossible. That's all I have unless others have questions of me.
I think we're good, Mark. I think
Okay.
Yeah, I have no.
we'll have questions on the next one though.
So what's our action then on this?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
Are
we
we
have
putting it
some-
on the next agenda again? Just so I know.
It's like, how many next agenda? It's like, we can take action on this.
What would we like that action to be?
I mean, I personally think that we should enter into this land lease agreement. We already know that we can't do anything financially for the next year, like, we know we can't. Moving forward past that, I mean, yeah, I think we need to do something with that property. Whether it only be gravel, and we do that to see how it goes, as he said. And if it's being utilized, then we could build on it. or
So
whatnot.
you're advocating to enter into the lease agreement and then actually do something to half of that?
Yeah,
Trying to come up with enough money to gravel it or whatever to start?
oh, gravel and half of it ain't gonna cost a ton for us.
You ever try plowing snow and gravel?
Well, I agree, no, I haven't, But at the same time,
You'll be gone in a year.
I mean,
Yeah, he's,
My opinion right now is unless we have a plan to go forward with something, which we do not have a plan for sure to go forward with anything, you're just wasting $200 a month. I mean, not that $200 is anything, I know it's an awesome agreement. I mean, it's a great contract on that part of it, but
how often would it be used? Any idea of how often it'd be used?
Daryl, you drive down here every day, you see what the parking lot's at Cava House.
Yeah,
People won't even come in the bar in the afternoon because it's so busy downtown, they think the bar's packed, so they don't come in. But it's everybody at Cava House.
that's what,
not in the evening. They're closed in the evening.
yeah.
Cava
Yeah, but
closed.
during the day, I mean, we need overflow parking during the day. What's it matter if it's day or night?
Well, I'm just saying it wouldn't be, at night, it wouldn't be Cava parking.
Well, I know, but I'm not supposed to advocate for my own customers to have a parking spot to come in the
No,
bar
I'm not
every day.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, you're saying that they won't come into the bar because of the parking. That could be during the day on a Saturday and Sunday, but it's not at night. They're closed by 4 o'clock.
Well, I know, but we still have an issue during the day too, is what I'm saying. I mean, we have an issue at night too. There was a huge wedding at Dansmore this weekend. There's fish fries at the Legion. I mean, town has a lot of things going on and there's no parking. And this is the only option for parking in downtown.
I mean, if you look at every Friday night, I don't even know what was going on last Friday or Saturday, but the streets were lined just from, I think, Legion, Dansmore, overflow, I don't know who it was all.
This Saturday was the wedding, and there was a side-by-side ride that came
Yeah.
through.
This was way.
And we were just, I mean, we were super busy in the bar. I mean, every place was busy and there was no place to park in town. I mean, people were parking up at the bank.
I don't know if you're gonna get $200 a month if you go back to them in a year from now.
That's why I'm looking at it.
Probably not.
That's why I say you enter into the agreement now with plans to do something with it. We have a year to decide what those plans are. We might look in a year and say, we're just gonna gravel it. We might say we wanna go with the phase 1 or whatever you wanna call it, and budget that in. But yeah, if we think in a year from now, we're gonna get the same deal and everything, I don't know. Like he said, it's a sweetheart deal. I don't know. But I think if we step away from it now,
We probably wouldn't have an option a year from now.
Is it
Why,
possible
what
to
else are they
work?
gonna do with it, Mike?
What have they been doing with it?
That's what I'm
I mean,
saying.
been
They've never
sitting
done
on it.
anything with
I
it.
know, they've just been sitting on it all this time. and
So
they-
what makes you think they're gonna do something different?
I don't, but they finally went in and razzed the buildings, which took them forever to do that.
Is it possible to work with nonprofits in town and do a fundraiser for the work on the parking lot over the next year? If you do enter into the agreement?
that's what we're doing.
Because it would benefit the town and the Wheelos and the men's club. I mean, that's their sole purpose. Youth sports, I mean, they're very active now, so just an
I
idea.
know the car show would use it.
Yeah, I know Crandik's going to be replacing all the ties starting this spring, going from here to Iowa City.
I know it would benefit us during fun days.
They get stacked full of supplies and block it up for the next 2 years.
We don't replace all the ties?
Yep.
Just use it for storage, but all use the tracks for.
Right.
At this point.
I mean, I know money's tight, but I see Cody's point very well.
I'm just worried. We had an agreement with them, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and nobody acted on it then, and then they pulled everything from us. And it's taken us probably a good 3 years to even get them to respond to us again.
I'll make a motion to enter into the railroad land lease agreement. Okay.
With revision.
With revision.
Effective one. Like April 1st, May 1st?
Should we just do July 1st?
I don't
Like,
It's up to you guys, I'm asking you.
I just don't know, like, I don't wanna change like effective July 1st and then start like, oh, you keep changing it.
I'd say push the date out some if you guys wanna buy some time. I mean, I don't think they're gonna,
I think July 1st makes financially
It
sense
would-
with us with the fiscal year.
It would give us an opportunity to put on our agenda going forward to discuss what kind of upgrade we'd wanna initially do. I mean, right now, we're not sure, we're kicking around ideas, but I'm just saying, at least it would give us an opportunity maybe next month to have it on the agenda, an item to discuss, nothing but, okay, we're gonna enter the lease agreement, so now, we need to focus on what do we wanna do as far as what initial upgrade we wanna do to it.
So I'd say July 1st.
Got it.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Pujol,
Aye.
Klein,
Nay.
Broder,
Aye.
Enoch,
Hey,
Stahig. I don't have my name. Okay, that passes.
Okay.
thank you guys.
Next on the list is 78 Rose Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to take lead on this?
Please.
At least based on what I know. So obviously we have a property, 78 Rose Avenue, that appears to be in violation of the city code, creating a nuisance under our code. I think Shelley showed me a copy of a letter that was approved by council that went to the property, demanding that it be cleaned up. It's not, I think that was an October letter, if I remember correctly. It's still not cleaned up. I think it came back to council and they said, and the council voted to impose I think it was a $15 a day fine until the property's cleaned up. And the conversation I had with Shelley is, I'm not aware under our code or under Iowa law where the city can impose its own fine, such that was done. So the process is a municipal infraction. And so what we need to do is do a final letter to the property owner, giving them X number of days to get the property cleaned up and in compliance with the code. Again, let them know what the potential fine could be. It could be up to $750 per violation. The code that the court, the Johnson County Court, could issue, not the city. And then also, if I remember correctly, Shelley, our code provides that we need to have the magic language in there that the property owner can request a hearing before the city council to discuss whether or not they believe this is a nuisance or not. If they don't come within, a reasonable period of time, like you usually give them a week to come to the city clerk and say, I want to be on the next meeting, then they can come to council and plead their case. If council still believes it's a municipal infraction, then we'd move forward with filing a municipal infraction with the court. It's essentially like a lawsuit. It gets served on the property owner. The property owner then has 20 days to file an answer with the court. The court will set it for a hearing. And then as the city, we have the burden of proof to show that the property is not in compliance with the code. We provide the court with a copy of our nuisance ordinance, but more importantly, photographic evidence that shows that the property is in violation, and the court would hear the case and make a determination. Usually, a lot of times what happens is the property owner comes back to the city and says, okay, you're right, I'm in violation. And then we enter into something called a stipulated order, where it's an order finding that the property is in violation of the code. Property owner has, X number of days to remedy the problem. They agree to not be in violation of city code going forward. And then they agree to a certain fine of some sort. That gets filed with the court, and it has the same legal impact as if we'd gone to trial and the judge issued that same ruling. So I think what we're asking here for is council to vote on authorizing me as the city attorney to start moving in that direction as just described.
Hey, Mark, just, on the letters that were sent, there was a letter dated August 5th, 2024. That was the first notice, that it had a junk vehicle, which the junk vehicle was remedied and removed. Also dangerous building. There was a copy of the dangerous building code included with the letter. It also had photos taken in July of the 2 structures that were being deemed a dangerous building. And in that letter dated August 5th, 2024, it was, you're ordered to commence repairs, or request a hearing. So the hearing was given back in August.
Okay.
Any repair or demo should be completed within 90 days. Of course, then council reviewed that, and gave an extra, with the October 29th letter, that was just giving, an extension on the 90 days, and then
Shelley, did the property owner actually come to council and ask for an extension, or the council just did that on its own?
Council did that out of the goodness of their hearts.
Okay, so
He did not come to address council.
okay, so it sounds like we've already got the magic letter that went out in August. Shelley, I'm sorry, I didn't know that we had that. I don't recall that letter being sent to me. Maybe it was, and I don't remember. But if we followed, if we have followed all of our own code provisions on what we need to do as far as notice, was that letter sent regular and certified mail?
Yes, sir, at your request.
Outstanding. Then I think the motion I'd ask council for is to authorize the city attorney to move forward with filing a municipal infraction on 78 Rose Avenue in Swisher, Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Stagg,
Aye.
Enoch,
Aye.
Roder,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Pujol.
Aye.
All right, passes.
Don't you guys like it when the city attorney basically outlines your motion for you and all you have to say is so moved?
It makes it so much easier. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, so
Happy to help.
next on the list is a fireworks permit.
Motion to approve.
Hold on. I gotta get that written down here. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Fireworks permit. Was that you, Kurt?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Okay, ordinance 13-2025. Third reading.
Motion to place ordinance 13/2025 on its final reading?
Second.
Roll call.
Klein,
No, or nay?
Enoch,
Nay.
Pujol,
Nay.
Roder,
Nay.
Stagg.
Aye.
All right,
Okay.
so number 12, ordinance 14-2025. Third reading.
Motion to place ordinance 14/2025 on its final reading?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Enoch,
Nay.
Pujol,
Nay.
Roder,
Nay.
Stagg,
Aye.
Klein.
Nay.
Okay. Number 13, ordinance 15-2025, second reading.
Motion to place ordinance 15/2025 on its second reading?
Second.
Okay.
Which one's this is the Deegan, okay,
Mhm.
sorry.
It's not even.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
It was their subdivision.
Yeah. Roll call.
Pujol,
Aye.
Roder,
Aye.
Stagg,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Enoch.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're down to 14 for sign regulations.
Yeah, so, I think with the discussion that had taken place, the council wanted to review the sign regulations in city code for each zoning district, so I provided you each zoning district, and I know that that was a lot. And then I kind of condensed that into one document that had each district, so you can see exactly what those regulations are for each district.
Just so I'm aware, is the property that we had the problem with, is that in ag or is that?
It's an ag.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah, because it's close, I didn't know how it was.
yep.
Is this where we wanna make a change or just talk about it? I wanna,
Go ahead,
yeah, you know,
I guess. I shouldn't say that.
to try to maybe alleviate the problem we had a couple meetings ago. Obviously, the city must know where the right-of-way boundary is, otherwise we wouldn't know whether that sign was in the right or out. So, when you get it, I would like to see something, if we could do it, and I think we can, is when they apply for a permit to put a sign up, that we have them tell us roughly where they wanna put the sign, have the maintenance guy go, cause he's got the lines, let him go measure it, because obviously he measured it and said it was the wrong route now, so he should be able to tell us whether it's in the right place, can't he? Right.
The city should know, the city should have that information.
As I say, you know, we can't hardly tell them it's in the right of way if we don't know where right of way line's at.
Right.
So
We've got that.
if we know where the line is, have him put it where he'd like to do it, have the maintenance guy.
Well, I'm only, I don't wanna speak for Public Works, but yes, I'm sure that they can
Yeah.
help with that. In this instance, the building permit was supplied with a sketch that showed that the sign would be placed
Yeah.
to the north of the right-of-way line.
Right.
And then nothing, you know,
What he should do is flag it. Flag the property, and the maintenance guy go check it, and where the flag is at, he would know whether it's in the right of way or not. Flag it, don't go by that sketch, that sketch is.
it can be off here or there
Yeah.
a little bit,
So
I
have
don't
him,
disagree.
and that's what you have to do on the call one, anyway, you
Well,
gotta flag it where you wanna put it.
Well-
And then they come determine where it's.
that didn't happen.
No, I know, but we're just saying that's what
No.
you do with one call.
Typically, that's what you should do, yes.
So, you know, when they
yes.
do it, when they come for a permit, tell them to flag it where they want it.
Yep, the permit does say.
And then we can come, and this maintenance guy, wouldn't take him long, and he knows, cause obviously he knows where his right of way, otherwise you can't, if you don't know where the right of way is at, then he can't tell him it's in the right of way,
Yeah,
so.
no, agreed. And typically typically a building, when somebody takes out a permit, it's usually a few days and they're putting up their structure,
Yeah,
doing,
but-
this was,
Yeah, I know, but you know what I'm saying, that
while.
may alleviate some problems in
Oh,
the future,
absolutely.
and that way
That typically is how it works.
it takes off, you know, you shouldn't get involved in that part of it.
You're right.
Well, you should.
You're
Like,
right.
You got involved with the other night, you should have. Yeah, well, I would say, two meetings ago, you know,
Oh, the 811 call.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
but,
the clerk should be letting people know,
Well-
don't forget to do your 811 call.
well, yeah, that's fine, give them information, but, I think that, and then that's out of your hands, and then, once it's flagged, if it's wrong, then that's on them. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but it shouldn't be that difficult of a problem.
Right, I agree with Daryl, I think we should have definitely known that that was in the right of way ahead of time before you ever put I mean.
Well, yeah, and we did once the sign was already up, right?
Well, I
yeah,
know, but we should know like where exactly he's putting the sign, so we know if it's in
Your
the right of way.
your sketch showed us all right, but
Yes.
that's not your fault or anything, because we should have had this set up beforehand to flag it, and then we tell them where to put it. Then it's on them if they don't put it where they flag it.
Now, are they asking for anything from the city in return for them having to move the sign and everything?
We can't talk about that.
Oh, okay,
That's not on this.
oh, okay.
Yes, they are.
So I don't know, do we need a motion to do this change,
So,
or?
hey, Daryl, if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think you need to revise your sign ordinance or regulations for this. To me, this is a city policy. I think
Okay,
if somebody wants to make a motion that this is the new city policy going forward, obviously if it gets seconded and voted on and but somebody needs to articulate what the policy, specifically what the policy is going to be. And then that's the policy the city would move going forward. I'm not sure you need to reduce it to writing in our code.
No, that's why you're getting paid the big bucks, Mark.
Huge money. Although I'm a little nervous, you guys didn't even vote yourselves a pay raise. I better not come back for a higher hourly rate here in the next year or two.
That was a hit.
Right.
Probably right.
Let me tell you something, Mark.
Mark, I did, but they all voted me down.
I think our regulations are fine, the way they are written.
Well, it's just procedure then.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it's more
Yeah,
procedure.
that's, as long as we everybody agrees on that,
So you make a motion.
I make a motion that they whatever I said, no. When they apply for a permit for a structure, have them flag it where they want it, and then we'll determine whether it's in the right of way or not.
The exact location too.
Yeah.
Not a few feet.
Not a picture.
Public Works will.
Yeah, he can do it. I think he can free his time up a little bit to do that.
Not just make sure we clarify who's responsible for it.
Yeah.
Okay, motion, or second, I should say.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so much. One quick thing, Mark, while we have you here.
Yes.
So, question for you. We currently don't have any fines set up for if we break a regulation or an ordinance to give to a property owner. Is there a procedure for this? Because we had an individual start a fire, walk away from the fire. It was on the city right away. And he also did it after dark, which is against the ordinance. So, question I have, the fire chief asked me how we wanted to proceed. How do we handle a bill for the services to come out to take care of somebody who violated that stuff? And the sheriff had the same question, or the deputy, I should say.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that a city can impose its own personal fines on city violations. I think your step is to file a municipal infraction, and part of your claim would be the cost for the fire department to come out and put out the fire. But here's what you really want from municipal infraction. You want a court order that tells them not to do it again. And why is that important? Because if they do it again, you can file something called a show cause and request the court to set a hearing. And then that party gets to come and explain to the judge why they didn't comply with the court order. And the court can fine them in contempt. They can issue another fine. Now it could be $1,000. And if it got really, really, really bad, the court could actually fine them in contempt and put them in jail. Now, ask me if that's ever happened. For all the municipal infractions I've done over the year. Jail time, never. But I have seen them find them in contempt and impose additional fine.
Okay, that was my question. I know City of North Liberty, their fire department has a list of prices for their infractions, but I haven't got my list from him. My meeting's tomorrow with him.
Yeah, if you can get a copy of that, Mayor, I'm happy to look at it and see if there's any other opportunities or avenues. But all the municipalities I work with, I can't think of any of them that have those kinds of fines.
Okay.
Not saying you can't do it. I'm just not aware of how to do it if it's being done.
Is this a common thing for a small town to get this involved, Mark?
Involved with what, Daryl?
Well, for years, I lived in this town quite a few years. In the fall, the burning leaves, people have done it for years. And, do we want to start stopping that?
Well, I think it depends on what the city wants to do. I know some municipalities forbid leaf burning, they can have a fire pit. But beyond that, they can't do it. So it depends on what direction council wants to go.
Well, I think what we're talking about here though is somebody that was burning in the right of way
Right away?
versus on their property.
Correct.
which is different.
What were they burning? Just like tree branches and leaves and things?
Tires.
No, they just built up a fire right over where they were gonna dig their hole for their sign and walked away from it and left it going.
So I don't understand why they started a fire. Maybe you don't either.
He said it was to thaw the ground.
This isn't even on our agenda right now.
No, it's not, it's just a question.
We could send individual questions, I think, to the attorney, but I don't think we should.
Well, and I think also you ought to put this on the agenda for further discussion. And then Mayor, you'll have that list maybe from North Liberty. I can take a look at it. We can talk about it next meeting.
Okay.
So I do have one quick question, Mark. For a municipal infraction, the council would have to have that as an agenda item to discuss and move forward on in order for you.
Yes, because you're gonna have to authorize me to move forward on it. That's right.
Okay.
Although I will tell you, if we have all the information in advance, you don't necessarily need me at the council meeting where you're authorizing me to move forward with a municipal infraction. All I really need is the authority from council to do so.
All right, okay.
Thanks, Mark. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Colin.
Good night, everybody. Good to see everybody. Take care.